Good evening. We're going to call the meeting for Akron City Council to order. At this time, we're going to ask our clerk to read in the roll.
Baylor.
Aye.
Connor. Freeman. Aye. Fusco. Aye. Holland.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Here.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal.
Here.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
All members are present.
For those who voluntarily wish to do so, would you please stand at this time as we are led in prayer by Deacon Michael Robinson from Arlington Church of God. Immediately following our prayer, I'm going to ask if Councilman Fusco will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Heavenly and gracious Father, Lord, we come before you this evening, first of all, just giving you thanks. We do nothing without giving you thanks and praise for who you are. We thank you for this gathering this evening, God. We thank you for the caretakers of this community as they sit around this table to make decisions for each and every one of us in our communities and within this city, God. We ask you that you would bless and look over the first responders, God. Look over those in our judicial system. Look over those, oh Lord my God, that protect us each and every day. Father, help us, oh Lord my God, as we take care of this beautiful city that you have given us, oh Lord my God. We ask you that this meeting this evening would be productive. We ask you, oh Lord my God, that the concerns of the least of these as well as the greatest of these, God, will be on the hearts and the minds, those that are making decisions for this city. We just love you and we magnify you for who you are. We ask you, Lord, that each and every one of us, oh Lord my God, would be great stewards of the city of Akron. For it's in Jesus' name, amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The minutes for our previously held meeting have been provided. Are there any additions or corrections?
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Connor. Freeman. Aye. Fusco. Aye. Holland.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal. Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
The motion to approve the minutes passes 12-0 with one abstention.
Before you, you have the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Connor. Freeman. Aye. Fusco. Aye. Holland.
Aye.
Kamer. Aye. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
The consent agenda passes 13-0.
We have one item up for public hearing this evening, and our clerk will read in item number 1.
Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Council of the City of Akron on Monday, June 12, 2023, during the regular council meeting at 7 p.m. upon an ordinance approving the certificate of appropriateness to demolish the former Beacon Journal building at 44 East Exchange.
Mr. Antonucci?
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of council. The owner of the former Beacon Journal building at 44 East Exchange Street, Michael Moran, is appealing the decision of the Urban Design and Historic Preservation Commission on May 2nd to deny his request for a certificate of appropriateness to demolish the building. The building was listed as an Akron historic landmark for the owner's request in March of 2021. Public hearings were held by the Urban Design Historic Preservation Commission on October 18th and again on February 7th to hear the owner's request for a certificate of appropriateness to demolish the building. At each meeting, 90 days time was granted and approved to allow the owner additional time to market the building for purchase. Urban Design and the Historic Preservation Commission voted to deny the request on May 2nd. If demolished, the use of the property would be a surface parking lot. the owner would work to retain the tower portion of the building. The reason for the demolition is that the owner has not found a tenant for the building after spending considerable capital. There is no indication on the submitted documents that the building is deteriorating. The city's historic preservation ordinance states that the urban design and historic preservation commission shall approve a certificate of appropriateness for demolition when A, the historic landmark is so deteriorated that its integrity has been irretrievably lost, and B, the structure is a secondary one that lacks historic or architectural significance or does not occupy a major portion of the historic landmark, and C, retention of the historic landmark is not technically or economically feasible, and D, the commission, after thorough investigation, determines that there is no feasible alternative to demolition. The planning staff and urban design and historic preservation commission do not feel that the applicant has produced compelling evidence that all of these conditions have been met, and recommends denial of the certificate of appropriateness. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to open up our public hearing. Do we have anyone here in the audience who wishes to speak in favor or against? If so, I'm going to ask that you please stand at this time so that you may be sworn in by our clerk.
Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, I do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we're going to begin with those who wish to speak in favor of item number 1.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Corbin Murphy. I live at 968 West Market Street, Akron. President Somerville, council members, and council committee for planning and economic development. This group is before council to request a reversal of the decision made by the Urban Design and Historic Preservation Commission, the UDHP. Because of the way the city's ordinance is written, the UDHP had no choice but to deny the request. The ordinance, while appearing to have exceptions allowing demolition, is written requiring that all exceptions are met in order to be granted, and that is an impossible task. If the team wished to restore the building and in the process remove only the newest addition, the commission would still have been required to deny the request and force an appeal. On behalf of the owners of the Akron Beacon Journal, this appeal for the demolition of the ABJ is presented to you. There are 4 criteria under which the demolition may take place: loss of landmark status, loss of structural integrity, deteriorated condition, lack of economic viability. The owners of the ABJ are prepared to discuss the lack of economic viability. However, the city's legal counsel has stated that the ordinance requires all 4 criteria. In reviewing this situation, the local landmark is required to have structural integrity before it is listed in the city's register, and the owner of a local landmark is required to maintain the building. So if the owners are fulfilling the responsibility to maintain the building, this criterion could never be met. It is an impossible situation. In response to the economic viability, the owners first applied to the UDHP in October of 22. The team agreed to take time on the issue to see if they could generate any more interest in the project from new developers or any others with whom the project had already been discussed. 90 days was set as the goal. Returning in February, the team again agreed to take time to allow others to step forward with solutions. Each of these 90-day time periods was offered by the team to mimic other cities' required ordinance responses to a request for demolition. To show good faith and to seriously search for a viable solution, please understand the urgency with which this work was conducted. The team understands that the tax credits offered by the Ohio Department of Development have an expiration date. The tax credits that are attached to this building are a big incentive for any developer. If the tax credits expire, the incentives to develop this property expire as well. The team was pleased to see good attendance at the UDHP meetings. As the team anticipated, there were some good ideas suggested. The team continues to follow through with some of those ideas in an attempt to save the building. All ideas were recorded as they were given to the owner or to the design team. The team does not want this building to go down. However, there is an active offer on the table for the property that does not include most of the building. Unless the team can make one of those ideas financially viable within the time frame expected by the Department of Development, that offer will be the only one on the table. The team thanks you for your time in reviewing the appeal to the UDHP decision. The team also understands that City Council must address these types of situations in their own land holdings. The Firestone Building Number 1 presents many of the same difficulties as the Akron Beacon Journal. Perhaps we can solve some of these issues together. I would also like to point out that this is privately owned property, and we are not asking the city for money. We are not asking the city to cover the abatement. We are not asking the city to cover the demolition, partial demolition or development of the parking. We are, however, asking for approval of our appeal so that we have more options to continue as we move forward.
Thank you.
Justin Gantz, 6677 Frank Avenue Northwest, North Canton, Ohio. Just to build upon Elizabeth's comments, I'd like to read the ordinance from the Akron Municipal Code, section 31395D. In the case of demolition, when demolition is necessary because A, the historic landmark or historic district is so deteriorated that its integrity has been irrelevably lost, and the structure, B, the structure is secondary one that lacks historic or architectural significance or does not occupy a major portion of the historic landmark or historic district, and retention of historic landmark or district is not technically or economically feasible, and the commission, after thorough investigation, determines that there is no feasible alternative to demolition. The packet we had submitted for your review and your consideration is an attempt to prove that the owner has clearly exhausted many resources and time to try to find an economic feasibility for this building. For starters, the building sat for sale for several years before Mr. Ron purchased it in 2020. That's actually where I first came to know the building. I toured other developers through it, did other test fits for different developers, owners, corporations, all of which were passed up. When Mr. Moran purchased the building in 2020, he reached out to us and our firm, knowing our experience and understanding behind the building, and asked that we would kind of help him in this process. Mr. Moran has spent 3 years, over $1 million in soft costs and maintenance for the building. That's beyond the $1 million that he spent to purchase the building. Through that 3 years, we've looked at multifamily, we've looked at hotel and micro units. We've submitted for historic tax preservation and were awarded tax credits. We've looked at logistics, local logistics company. We responded to an RFP. There were cost estimates, pro formas submitted in your packet. We've worked with the local testing company and took them through a due diligence period. Again, concept floor plans, cost estimates, pro formas. And then finally, most recently, was the Akron Police Station, which we worked with to develop concept plans, cost estimates, pro formas again, all of which have been passed up on by the tenants and end users. Again, leaving Mr. Moran without any viable option for this building. Again, just to reiterate, Mr. Moran has explored all options. He secured historic tax credits. He's taken advantage of the opportunity zone. He's navigated TIF financing, tax abatement. All of that has been put on the table. None of it taken advantage of yet, obviously, because the building has not moved forward. But, you know, these efforts, in our opinion, have thoroughly demonstrated the lack of economic feasibility. In November of 2022, we began our application for demolition, and that's where we ran into the ordinance here and why we're here today. Essentially, the way that the ordinance reads is that we will not be able to do any demolition on this building without all four of these conditions being met. Even the one, I mean, architecturally significant. I think no one here would argue this building will never not be architecturally significant. So per the ordinance, therefore, we'll never be able to tear it down. Since Akron Beacon Journal building would never be considered a secondary structure that lacks historic significance, the language of the ordinance would prohibit the demolition regardless of the three remaining conditions to be met. Currently, the owner has clearly demonstrated retention of historic landmark is not technically or economically feasible. Therefore, the decision by the Urban Design and Historic Preservation Commission has the mechanics of a real estate taking without providing just compensation for the property owner. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
I'm Apostolate, and my voice is gone because of the weather, so just forgive me, please. And my address is confidential for safety reasons. I support the demolition process. If there's no further use for its original use for this building, I do have some questions, though I would like to ask you all. Once it is demolished, where will the waste from the demolition go? What community will it go in? Will it go into a poor community? Will it go into our water? What happens to the waste? My next question is, who will be the contractor? Will it only be the main contractor who everybody gets all of the time, or will be people of color have this job? And my other question is, a really serious concern of why you would do any demolition and make something into a parking lot with the homeless population being what it is, as well as other safety and home lifestyle concerns. I heard all of the legal language, and I had you come before me because I'm down here on a regular. That's why I wanted to hear what you had to say. But I still don't hear anything that's effective for the masses of people in this demolition process. And I would like to know what is really behind this. Because you don't just get rid of things for no reason. And who's going to be positively impacted and affected by this. And once again, I want to know, where is the waste going to go once the building is demolished? Is it going to be environmentally safe? Is it going to be financially productive for all of the citizens of Akron? Those are my concerns. But as for it being demolished for no further use for its original intention, I'm not against that, especially if it becomes an eyesore to the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in the audience wishing to speak in favor? Is there anyone here in the audience wishing to speak against?
Madam President, members of council, my name is Aaron Newell. I'm not actually a citizen of Akron. I'm a University of Akron college student, soon to be graduate, but I love the city so much that I want to make sure that the city thrives, because when Akron succeeds, everybody around it succeeds as well. I'm here to ask for your support in saving this building. I'm sure that we've already talked about its historical significance, so I'll keep that brief. It's been in Akron since its founding in 1929 for the Akron Times-Press. In 1938, John S. Knight moved there just down the road here, and there was 4 Pulitzer Prizes that were won within that building in different respective eras. The building itself is an Art Deco masterpiece, one of several that we still have in Akron, but we do not have that many left. In the Polsky building, the YMCA building, and the First National Tower, those are the really only examples of Art Deco that we still have thriving in the city. I want to cover, beyond the historical significance, though, the opportunity cost. This building is 230,000 square feet. Stan Hewitt Hall, of which I am an active employee, is 64,500 square feet. So you could fit multiple of Stan Hewitt in that building and still have plenty of room. I refuse to think that a parking lot is the only thing that we can do for that building. A parking lot should be the very last resort. That is, we have exhausted every option. There's nothing else that we or the city can do. And I don't believe that's the case. I've seen cities that thrive under rejuvenative economic development through the existing buildings, and that leads to another opportunity cost of the environmental impact. Studies show that the greenest building is the one that currently stands, and the impact that it would have for demolition, even if the owner covers the cost of that, would be a massive undertaking. You'd have to block off roads. You don't know about airborne particulates. I'm sure there's lead and asbestos in that building. You'd have to cover that anyway if you were going to restore that building. And beyond that, there's a lot of different opportunities that we could have, but the thing that we need is time. That building has stood for almost 100 years. We're thinking about demolishing it after less than one. And so I think that we need to really take a close look, with especially a new administration coming in, that this building has the opportunity for something great, but we have to take time and consider the different opportunities and not be, kind of nearsighted here. Akron has had a pretty poor history of taking buildings that have significance and not appreciating them and then being very melancholy whenever they're not here. I think of the Akron Armory, I think of Warner Castle, I think of Harble Manor. These are just a few examples. The list goes on. If I were standing here to say how many historic buildings we lost in the 50 years, I would be here for well after we've dismissed. So I really want to make sure that you all understand the gravity of this, that we are at a turning point here to make sure that the city of Akron has an economic opportunity to develop downtown in ways that many other cities have. We need to take advantage and strike while the iron is hot. And I really appreciate your support. One final thing is that although we have many friendly faces in the gallery here, I've started a petition. We have over 1,000 signatures. And these are Akronites. These are people from in and out of the state of Ohio, and they all agree that this building is significant, as I do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
Good evening, Council. My name is Sarah Dietrich, and I am president of Progress Through Preservation of Greater Akron. And I stand before you today asking that you please vote in favor of denying the certificate of appropriateness requested by Capstone Real Estate Investments, owned by Michael Moran. This legendary building deserves another chance to have more time at the possibility of an adaptive reuse opportunity with a new developer. Mr. Moran took it upon himself to seek the historic designation of the Akron Beacon Journal building to benefit from the historic tax credits. And just because his time frame has not been met with the opportunity he has been looking for, it is morally wrong for him to seek an option for more parking that will benefit his sons who own the adjacent properties. It is also worth mentioning that it is ethically wrong for Elizabeth Corbin Murphy, who was on the Urban Design and Historic Preservation Commission, to be representing Capstone Real Estate Investments here tonight. We are thankful that the UHDCP denied the COA, and we hope that you will do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak against?
My name is Dana Noel. I live at 601 Weber Avenue, Akron. I'm a lifelong Akron resident. I'm also a general contractor who's specialized in historic tax credit projects for the last 20 years. My office is in Cleveland, and most of my work has been in Cleveland, although I'm an Akron resident. And I tell you this because I'm speaking from the voice of experience. It's not wishful thinking. You know, the comments that I have to make are rooted in the experience I've had with these various tax credit projects. I've probably been involved with as many as 25 historic tax credit projects over the years, one way or another. Probably it's a historic building, there's no question about that. creating a parking lot would easily be the lowest and worst use and a giant step backwards in the redevelopment of our city. I wrote a letter to council last Friday, and I hope that everybody had a chance to read it, but I thought I would just quickly go through the points that I made there to refresh your memory. First of all, no data has been provided that supports the need for a parking lot. No studies have been done that I know of anyway. And in fact, no data has been provided that it's not economically viable. In fact, I think if you had a third-party feasibility study done, you'd see that, you know, there are possibilities. Witness the Bowery District, witness all of Tony Tropy's properties, witness the Law Building, witness all the other redevelopment that has gone on in downtown Akron that's been successful. I'm not saying that it's easy. There are a lot of bumps in the road, but I think before we tear this building down, we need to work together and try everything that we can and truly exhaust all the possibilities before we consider tearing it down. We can always tear it down. No alternative. I mean, they've suggested a parking lot, but it's going to tear a hole in our tax base. No, you know, really compelling alternate use has been proposed or replacement for that. Fine, tear it down. If you have a 5-story, you know, medical office building or clinic that's going to replace it with high-paying jobs, then maybe we would have a discussion and there'd be a real conversation about whether to tear it down or not. The owner claims extraordinary costs, but they all, and he said they're typical maintenance expenses, taxes and so forth, probably design fees that he's had to pay, and I wouldn't be surprised that they're not $1 million. But it's doubled the sale price and therefore discouraged a lot of potential buyers. I think part of the formula here is not so much whether there's a feasibility here, but is the seller being realistic in the value of the property and what it's going to take to fix it up, and maybe requesting an unreasonable sale price. I don't think he's done any capital improvements that I know of that would justify a higher price for the property. He has a buyer on the that's on the table, but the buyer is his son, probably an individual LLC, so there is a separation there, but you can't help but think there's an obvious identity of interest, and it's family. So it's kind of cold comfort. It's not a true arm's length sale. So, you know, what are we to think about that? We've also heard from the owner that there have been NDAs and there are irons in the fire, which is all well and good, but it's cold comfort to those who have to make a decision about this, not to really know or have you know, a transparent effort to tell council and the community what's really going on with his effort to redevelop this property. He has made a marketing effort, but yet he's, as far as I know, his architects have led this effort. If you were to sell your house, would you ask your architect to, you know, list it or broker it for you? I would expect he should have gone to or made an effort to enlist a national, if not a local, this is a regional or national project. I think there could be a lot of interest in this on a lot of different levels. And why not engage a broker that has that level of experience and really get the coverage that you need to create a project? In my opinion, the state tax credit, there is a time limit to it, but it doesn't mean that that's going to go away forever. The state tax credit can be reapplied for. A new developer or new owner could do that, or he could do that. And there's also mitigating circumstances that he could go to Columbus with and perhaps get an extension. I'm not sure that he wants to. He's spent 3 years trying to market this property. Well, I think a large part of that 1.5 or 2 years was during COVID. And I know from experience that a lot of projects that people were ready to go forward with, even if they had everything in place, they ended up postponing because of the uncertainty. And people who were in the market left the market waiting to see what was going to happen. I think we're just emerging out of that situation over the last year or so. I do know that bank financing disappeared for hotels during that period, and also for a number of other products. So so in conclusion, I'd just like to say it might make a lot of sense to regroup and postpone any kind of decisions. I would prefer that you just simply say that it's not appropriate, but definitely not appropriate at this time, and perhaps regroup down the road with a new mayor and give more thought to the possibilities here. And I would say that real estate is a long game. I don't think all the options have really been exhausted here. There's still feasible alternatives. And if we work together, I think we can find some solutions. I know that all the projects that I've worked on over the last 23 years, they haven't been easy, and they've had multiple iterations as the owner has gone through here. But finally, you know, things make sense, the financing works, the capital stack, and I think probably the city needs to be involved in that too. The city is, because of your involvement, the city has, I think, seen a lot of success in the last couple of years. And I think if we can bring that to bear with this property, you know, I think ultimately we'll have something that'll make everybody happy and be a huge success for the city of Akron. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak against? Seeing and hearing none, we're going to close our public hearing. Councilman Fusco, what is the committee's pleasure?
Thank you. I'd like to pull the committee, excuse me, for an adverse report. Mr. Kamer? Aye. Cotter? Aye. Baylor? Aye. Mosley?
Aye.
The report of the committee is adverse. Yes, thank you. The question before council is a result of an appeal of a decision that was made by the Urban Design Historic Preservation Commission about the demolition of the Akron Beacon Journal building, and I believe that the criteria that is tested is that it been considered by the commission. This afternoon it was considered by council in terms of a lengthy meeting that we actually had. A lot of good discussion was an outcome of it. I don't think anybody here, and including those who are petitioning a decision from council, can argue the historic significance of this building. And especially if you're an Akronite, the historic significance of this building. I think we all can agree to that. It was the economics, I believe, that the petitioners here has appealed and has asked for us to consider that piece of it. But we as a city know that we have had, it takes time in order for a legacy city with buildings like this that are built for one specific use to be readapted in modern times. And that happens. And we've seen it happen at the Bowery and at other historic buildings in our city. But we also know that we have to be patient with it. We also know that we have to take time. And it takes time, and oftentimes not quick enough for us, and we all know that and appreciate it. But for example, the Bowery, which we had cited this afternoon, that was probably at least a dozen or so years, if not more, I don't know exactly. But this is an important building in terms of pride within our city. I believe it's in the city's best interest to preserve that. That history. So with that, I'd ask my colleagues to support the adverse report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Holland?
Thank you very much, Madam President, and thank you, Planning Committee Chairman Fusco. I concur with the points that you made, and I would also add that it's important for those who have been following this story to understand that the frequent references by the appellants to the, quote, owners of the ABJ is incorrect and even misleading. We are not talking about a building that is owned by the current Akron Beacon Journal. We are talking about a building that's owned by a private individual who purchased this building for $1 million and just a few short years later wishes to turn that building over for $2 million. And I think that's a very important item that needs to be clarified in this record. I would also point out that this matter has been pending and has gone through multiple meetings and hearings since October of 2022. And utterly absent in all of these gatherings has been the owner of this building himself, Michael Moron. Now, you know, we have here at this meeting and all of the other meetings that have led until this day, individuals who purport to represent him. However, they are not attorneys. And we are asked to accept as factual a variety of representations that we've never even had an opportunity to test. Now, the reality here is that this is an historically significant building for a number of different reasons that have been covered artfully and in detail both this afternoon and this evening by people who are actual experts. I think, though, we may sometimes be inclined to postpone a decision. I think that this one calls for action and action tonight, and so I would ask that the appeal be rejected and that the determination that was made by the Urban Design and Historic Preservation Commission be affirmed. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Malik?
Thank you, Madam President. Just to briefly echo my colleagues' comments, I think one of the most important things to me is that there are 4 conditions that have to be met, and by the petitioners or appellant's own testimony, they only claim to meet one of them. And that's as clear, I think, as we can have it in terms of what our decision has to be. The historic designation is not something that can be entered into lightly, and it's not something that can be removed lightly. And I think Mr. Fusco is entirely right that these things take time, and removing this and allowing a demolition for a parking lot a year and a half after it was entered into is not acceptable, I think, to our residents. And I think we all have a responsibility and all have an opportunity here to continue working on these irons in the fire and finding a solution that works. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments at this time? Okay, seeing and hearing none, the committee's report is adverse. All in favor for an adverse report? Roll call.
Baylor?
Aye.
Connor? Freeman?
Aye.
Fusco? Holland?
Aye.
Kamer? Lombardo?
Aye.
McKittrick?
Aye.
Malik?
Aye.
Mosley?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Amobian?
Aye.
Somerville?
Aye.
The motion for an adverse report passes 13-0, and this ordinance will be filed.
Okay. Thank you so much. We are going to continue with our old business, planning and economic development. Councilman Fusco.
Time on the agenda.
Time will be granted. Public service, Councilwoman Mosley.
Thank you, Madam President. File, please.
Okay. Those items will be filed. We'll now move into new legislation.
Item number 1 is offered by President Somerville, Councilman Fusco, Councilwoman Amobian, and Councilwoman Holland. Resolution expressing opposition to and urging Akron citizens to vote no on Ohio Issue 1, a ballot initiative which, if approved, would embed a minority rule in Ohio's Constitution by requiring a 60% supermajority to pass citizen-led constitutional amendments and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman,
Committee's report's favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
And Madam President, I would defer to you in that you were one of the sponsors.
Okay.
If you'd like to comment.
Actually, I don't have any further comment. I'm just asking and hoping that we can have a motion for hopefully mayor and council as a whole.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Wonderful. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor?
Aye.
Connor. Freeman.
Aye.
Fusco.
Aye.
Holland.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This resolution passes 13-0. Item number 2 was the ordinance for the public hearing. Item number 3 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids for the construction demolition of the Summit Lake Pump House and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Mosley,
Thank you, Madam President. The committee's report is favorable. We're asking for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Nothing further.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Connor. Freeman. Fusco. Holland.
Aye.
Kamer. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 4, offered by Mosley, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts with Burgess and Nyepel, Inc. for the design of the polymer system improvements at the Renewable Energy Facility and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Mosley,
Thank you, Madam President. The committee's report is favorable. We're asking for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Nothing further.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Connor. Freeman. Fusco. Holland.
Aye.
Kamer. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 5 was pulled. Item number 6, offered by Freeman, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to participate in the Water Resource Restoration Sponsor Program and to enter into sponsorship agreements with certain project implementers for the sponsorship of 6 projects under the WRRSP and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman,
Committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
The Water Resource Restoration Sponsor Program is not something new for the city of Akron. We become a sponsor, and we are sponsoring 6 other projects put on in other townships or municipalities. And as a result of that, because of our participation as a sponsor, it does lower our the rate on our 40-year bond, save the city about $3.5 million over the life of the bond. And with that, we ask for its passage.
Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Connor. Freeman. Fusco. Holland.
Aye.
Kamer. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 7, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract with Oriana House, Inc. for confinement, rehabilitation services, and alternative sentencing options for certain offenders convicted of violations of the Akron Municipal Code of Ordinances and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer,
Thank you, Madam President. Consent agenda, please.
this item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 8, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with the W.W. Williams Company, LLC, for the repair and replacement of the engine in an Akron Fire Division frontline ladder truck and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer,
Thank you, Madam President. The committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you. This is to replace the engine in our fire truck that is known as Ladder 9. We're asking for passage.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor.
Aye.
Connor. Freeman. Fusco. Holland.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 9, offered by Lombardo. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee, after publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts to resurface various courts for basketball, pickleball, and tennis, including those located at Kerr Park and Morgan Park, authorizing the expenditure of funds and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Lombardo,
Thank you. The committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Yes, so resurfacing these parks is necessary to provide player safety and for a smoother surface and even ball bounce. So with 2 tennis courts at Kerr Park, including pickleball, and 3 basketball courts at Morgan Park.
Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. All in favor, roll call.
Baylor. Aye. Connor. Freeman. Aye. Fusco. Holland.
Aye.
Kamer. Aye. Lombardo.
Aye.
McKittrick.
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Amobian.
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 13-0.
That concludes our new legislation for this evening. We're now going to move to the portion of our meeting that we refer to as our public comment period. We do have 3 individuals who have signed up, so at this time, if you'll please stand so that you may be sworn in by our clerk.
Could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say I do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. When you hear your name, just going to ask that you approach the podium. You will have 3 minutes to speak to this body, and we are going to begin with Apostolette.
Good evening again. I wrote a letter to the council and to the chief of police and the United States Department of Justice because I would like for you to do an investigation in reference to my safety concerns. And I don't know who I would give this to, but here's a copy of it. My babies. And by the way, human and sexual trafficking did not begin recently. It began over 2,000 years ago. And the birth certificate and driver's license are a portion of it. What have you done to my babies? I am a woman, a mother, a female, not a doormat. By the rivers of Babylon, by the lake called Erie, I have hung my harp, my hat. I have wept. I have sat. My hope has been in Jesus Christ. You say I have bad faith, yet still I wait. I wait for justice to roll down for me like this mighty stream that I read and hear about in someone else's dream. Your racism is so strong, even within my own race, you will not even look me in my face. Where are my babies? How did they get there? We had a good name. We were safe in my care. You lied, you robbed me, you stole them from me, then disappeared in thin air. You say what you do is civil and procedure. You spend trillions of dollars in advertising, telling lies, telling me to call you if I really need you. White people are not the only ones with knowledge. You pipeline those who are not to prison, not college. Jesus Christ represents both lamb and you. What have you done to my babies? Right here in America, the red, the white, the black, the brown, the yellow, and the blue. You have robbed me of my rights to be a mom, to protect and provide through the lake Erie and other waters and wallets you have made them hide. You went into a school with my civil order I had in place as you held me hostage, told them I had given them away. You came when I was supposed to be safe with my 2-year-old that unexpected day, yet you say we have no right to life because we are not all white. You use it against me because I am not jet black. You say just get over it, just fall back. Those the same color as me tell me to just let things be, since racist white America hang people on a tree. I'm a presidential candidate for this 2024 election and race. It is time for this nation to see a new face. I shall always love my babies, although so many lies have been told about me. My babies and my freedom shall never be bought or sold. I walk by faith, not by sight, even today on this most difficult and memorable night. My babies who I gave birth to from my womb shall never be compromised from your racist and sexist tombs. The fruit of my womb is blessed, even though my babies, my sucklings, were robbed and stolen from my nest and from my breast.
Thank you, Apostolate.
I need you all to please see what's
Apostolate,
going on with me.
I'm so sorry, but your time is up.
You all's time is up. Somebody find out what's happening to my wife and my children. I am displaced right now. I have not had a place to live since this happened to me. And people have been allowed to rape me and rob me and beat me up, including law enforcement officers. You all's time is up.
Thank you. Harrington Hargrove.
Good evening, Council. Harrington Hargrove, 1008 Laurel Avenue, Akron, 44307 Ward 3. And I would like to know if this council read the papers that I gave last week. Did any of you read it? If not, but it spoke about how for 35 years, those papers represent the many years that I've asked this council to allocate funding in the black community in Ward 3. 35 years. And there's a paper that I couldn't find, but it's minority-owned, women-owned, and other Ohio business. Do you have a story to tell? And I'm telling, the short story I've been telling is the story I told 22 years ago. I was asked to speak at the Ohio Capitol, and I spoke about the conditions of my community. And to this day, my community has not received their just due. This council knows the plight of the city. You cannot sit in the seat and not know the plight of all the city. And I've asked this council to come to Ward 3 to visit my community and see the plight, but then also come to my community and see the wealth. Opportunity Park is in Ward 3, from Dart Street to Main Street. How much money has the city put in that corridor? And furthermore, about my community, the Elevate Akron study, we were ground zero in that study. Ground zero. And to this day, not a new minority business been in our community. 35 years. 35 years, Council. I asked you to ride through our community and see it. But for some reason, you won't. Or if you have, you won't recognize our plight. And then they said they're going to have $6 million from Shabandi Hill. How much of that money is going to be in Ward 3? For economic development for our communities. Parks and Recreation, they've gotten plenty. This council needs to realize and consider the people that live in that community. We need opportunity. We want it. We want a change in our community. But the city doesn't. Y'all want to keep us poor. That's the motto of this city, keep them poor. From housing, the ladies come in and talk about the terrible condition in housing over there on the east side. They're still waiting. So, Council, why can't you do something for us? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hargrove. Reverend John Beatty.
Madam President and members of the council, tonight I have a bunch of questions. Why did the Republican Attorney General talk about the mental health of Jalen Walker, but said nothing about the mental health of the 13 police officers who surrounded Jalen Walker the night he was killed by 46 bullets after he was shot at more than 90 times? What about the 5 officers who didn't shoot? How are they feeling? What happens to a police officer who kills another human being? How do they live with themselves? Do they tell themselves he was a bad guy? And when his family, his preacher, his friends, and his coaches say he was a good young man, do they tell themselves he was crazy or suicidal? How do the APD training officers prepare a new recruit for when they might have to kill someone? Do the training officers explain that the officer and the officer's family are safe from punishment by the police department, by the courts, and by the city administration because of qualified immunity and the police union contract? Why are so many police officers resigning from the APD? Why does it seem that our police chief is prioritizing the safety of our police officers over the safety of the citizens who pay them to protect and serve them? A case in point is the purchase that the council approved of a tank. Who has it protected so far? Not the citizens, not the protesters protesting injustice, but the mayor. Why have so many citizens in Akron been killed by police and not one police officer has been killed while on duty for decades? Thank God they have been safe. But let's pray also for the families of too many citizens slain by police officers in Akron. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Beatty. That concludes our public comment period for this evening. I want to thank all of those who participated. We're now going to move into our committee assignments. Rules, Councilman Freeman.
2 p.m.
Public Safety, Councilman Kamer.
2:15.
Budget and Finance, Councilman Freeman.
3 p.m.
Parks and Rec, Councilman Lombardo.
1:45.
Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco. Housing and Neighborhood Assistance, Councilman Fusco. Public Service, Councilwoman Mosley.
2 p.m.
Health and Social Services, Councilwoman Amobian.
2:30.
Public Utilities and Green Committee, Councilman Freeman.
2:45.
Is there anything else coming before council at this time? Councilwoman Mosley?
Thank you, Madam President. 2 things. First, I'm not sure if you all saw your emails from Mike Miller, who gives us updates of things that are going on in our community. We've had a very busy weekend here in Akron with gunplay, young people with guns. 16, 17-year-old shot over in Joy Park. Same conversation we keep having about these guns, and we need to really figure out what it is we're doing because it's only going to increase. We fortunately and unfortunately haven't had a really hot summer yet, but it's coming. And we have a lot of different community events that are upcoming, and so I'm hoping that we will have a police presence just so we can make sure our residents will participate and feel safe, because right now our young people have guns and our elders don't feel safe. Secondly, one of the reports that he sent out was from them finding a body on Minority Place. Anyone who has been around the Horseshoe, I've been here for 9 years, and since I've gotten here, I've talked about Minority Place being vacationed. I've had Yandacy talk about Minority Place being vacationed, and Flash Feet talking about it being vacationed, and the only response we got was because there was utilities underneath those streets. It should not deter that place being vacationed. It serves no economic purpose to that community. It runs parallel to Arlington and Talbot. We have Yandacy. It goes right through Yandacy's parking lot. It goes right down the backside of Fast Fleet, who put in $1 million into staying in that neighborhood. And we had a shooting right there a couple years ago where the employees had to run through the alleyway to get away. but for, if it was vacation, maybe they wouldn't have had to run. It runs all the way through Bethel Baptist Church's back of their church. It runs through the parking lot of Arlington Church of God. It has no place. And I'm going to ask this again on the record. We have a new planning director. I do want to talk to Mr. Tatum about this because that place has to be vacation before someone really ends up hurt. We have a dead body today. Cheryl Stevens pays for Akron Police Department to sit in the parking lot every day when her employees are leaving work. But for, if the street was vacation, maybe they wouldn't have so many problems. I'm not saying it's going to curb all the problems, but it's been a problem since I've been here and predating me. And if you have people who are investing in that neighborhood, in that community, and all they're requesting is for that place to be vacation so they can conduct business safely, it serves no purpose and it should be vacationed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Neal?
Thank you, Madam President. My colleague has already spoke of an issue that's been discussed in this horseshoe a lot about the gun violence. And Reverend Beatty said something we don't think about, maybe because some of you don't get these calls. When people call you because there's been a shooting in their community, we think about the victim and the person that did the shooting. But we don't think about the residents that live in that neighborhood who have bullet holes in their homes, in their cars, and they're dealing with the constant trauma from that. Now, I bring that up because we have the My Neighborhood, Our Akron City Council grant. We haven't discussed it. We never discussed council's budget. We haven't put any money behind anything. We put money behind, and I'd like for us to see where this money, where it stands, behind restaurants for COVID, but all those protocols have been dropped. If there's any money left, we need to reallocate those funds to put something proactive to address this. My colleague says 9 years, it's been longer than that. As council, we've never been proactive in addressing this issue. And as she stated, summer hasn't even gotten started yet. So I'm asking this, because can bring in the resolution to bring in funding, but I'd like for us to have a real discussion. The My Akron City Council grant is fluctuated all over the board. Look at funding that so that we can empower communities, maybe in a different way with that funding. And then look at what money is left over from the COVID money that we gave the restaurants that kind of, I think we should have thought of, because we tried to put protocol there, but there was no protocol anywhere else in the community. If there's any money left, bringing that money back, and then as council, putting together a way that we can empower our communities in some kind of way to be proactive to address these issues.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Lombardo?
Thank you. Just wanted to invite everybody on Thursday, June 15th, there's an open house at Patterson Park Community Center. The city is investing several dollars at this location, so you can come see the renovations and the upgrades that will make these places more inclusive and accessible and fun for all. So Thursday, June 15th at 6:30 at Patterson Park Community Center. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Holland?
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to extend an invitation as well, and it ties in with a couple of things that have been said tonight. This Wednesday, the 14th, at 6:30 at the Highland Square Library, we'll be having a community conversation about the what seems to be seasonal rise of late-night activity around Highland Square, specifically the bar district. We are, hearing more and more in the greater Highland Square area, gunshots, high-speed traffic incidents. Young people were involved in a high-speed, possibly alcohol-involved incident just a few blocks from the square the other night. We'll be talking about this. I received multiple phone calls, messages, contact from neighbors from people all over Ward 1 every weekend. This is an opportunity to talk to each other, to communicate too with top leadership from Akron Police Department, for whom I have great appreciation in figuring out ways to simultaneously encourage a feeling of, coming out on a beautiful summer night and enjoying a good time with friends in an area that many of us, have been visiting for, decades, but also having a feeling that, that we are safe, that our kids are safe, that our friends and family members are safe, that everything's going to be okay. So that's this Wednesday, 6:30, Highland Square Library. I'd love to have you there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I do have just one thing to share. There was actually a really exciting weekend for Ward 3 as we opened up the LeBron James I Promise Housing building, which was really exciting. I know that Councilwoman Connor, Councilwoman Amobian, Councilman Malik came and shared in that excitement. The building is absolutely phenomenal, 50 units, 4 families, so we know how important housing is for families, and particularly our young people. We also had Neighbors Day in Ward 3, which was also a really awesome experience. Ward 3 residents worked with the Akron Zoo to create a block party just for the neighbors right around the zoo. And it was absolutely amazing. And it's something to think, as long as the zoo has been there, there's still people who live around the zoo that it was their very first time, right? They had never had an opportunity to experience the zoo. And the zoo made it very special for those young people and those children, and even our seniors, right, to see some behind the scenes things that you don't normally get an opportunity to see at the zoo. So just want to thank the Akron Zoo for a really awesome experience on that day as well. Is there anything else coming before council at this time? If not, we can have a motion for adjournment. No objections, meeting adjourned.
This concludes the live broadcast of Akron City Council. Margot Somerville, President of Council, presiding.